someone can love you as hard as they know how.
Right.
But if that's not how you receive love, you're not going to feel love.
Right.
From a male perspective, what do they think about being a chivalrous man?
A chivalrous man, a man that knows your love language and loves you in that way. At what point do you bring him home? Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mother-Daughter Mixtape, where we talk everything love, life, and lessons learned along the way. My name is Jada.
And my name is Charmaine.
And welcome to our podcast.
Today we are talking about dating. I know we've talked about dating in the past, but we're going to have like a little bit of a different take on it today. We're going to talk about whether chivalry is dead or is it still on and popping?
I think today's conversation is going to be like more in depth about the dating world. And like you said, things like chivalry, love languages, when to introduce your partner to your family and things like that. So a bit more in depth, granular details and our takes on those topics today.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one because and we have not had this conversation between the two of us before. So I'm excited to kind of see your perspective on some of these things.
Yeah, same. I feel like I've never had the conversation with you about like when I should bring somebody home. I have my own idea of what that looks like, but I've never gotten like well, you shouldn't introduce somebody until this. Like I've never had that talk.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Awesome. So grab your apple martini, get comfy, and let's hit play on today's episode.
Boom.
So let's jump right in. Let's talk about chivalry first, because I feel like I don't want to say chivalry is dead because I don't think it is.
It's hard to find though, harder to find.
Certainly. What's your definition of chivalry?
I think chivalry is when a man is a gentleman in any form or fashion. So a man that opens and holds doors for me. I don't want to get into the, financial aspect, but a man that,
that
pays.
Is chivalrous.
Okay, I was going to say a man that pays.
We are
for
authentic
dates.
over here. Okay.
A generous man. A generous man is a chivalrous man, in my opinion.
Can we pause right there? Like generous. Can we talk about that word? Because I feel like when a lot of people talk about, a man taking care of the bills and things like that, and then we talk about being generous. To me, they're two different things. So in my mind, a generous man, it doesn't mean that he's rich. It doesn't mean that he has a lot of money or that he spends all of his money on you. He could be generous for sure from a financial perspective, but also outside of that, generous with his time, generous with making sure that you're taken care of, even from a non-financial perspective.
Yeah, I definitely think a generous man is a considerate man. Like he takes into account how his actions, things that he does will make you feel.
Yeah.
So I prefer someone, like you said, that's generous in all aspects over a man that's just going to pay my bills. Like it never was about that for me.
Exactly.
Now, don't get me wrong. It's nice.
Don't come over here with no money.
Don't come over here with nothing.
That's a full stop.
We said that in one of our previous episodes.
And I meant it.
Yeah. But like you said, generosity is not just about financial stuff as well. So actually, let's look at the definition of what chivalry is and let's see if our definitions kind of align with that.
Yeah. So while you look that up, I'll just kind of talk about like my version or my definition, because I think it's very close to what you've stated. So really someone who is taking care of me and us in a holistic way. That's when I think of like chivalry. And of course, opening the doors and, just making me feel safe, making me feel like I'm important to them, and it can be simple things like just bringing me flowers. You don't have to send me $100 bouquet from 1-800flowers.com. You can
Walmart.
Listen, Publix, whatever store
Trader
you want.
Joe's got some of the best flowers I done
They don't
ever
have
seen.
to be expensive. It's the thought that counts. And those bouquets are beautiful from the grocery store, Walmart, whatever.
And
I'm just saying.
I'll even take it a step further and say that if you go to a place like Whole Foods, when you buy their flowers, they'll even let you like dress them up as a bouquet while you're there for free.
Yeah.
They teach you how to make, if you get 3 different types of flowers, they teach you how to make it into a bouquet, wrap it up and all that stuff. So
I don't think about that.
That's chivalrous to me.
Oh, for sure.
Thoughtful, you know?
Exactly.
So I think a lot of men these days just don't know how to be thoughtful and considerate. And that's like one of my top priorities when it comes to, a person that I'm dating. I need to feel like you've thought of me for the day. Like I've always said that if you're going to buy me flowers, I don't want flowers because you in the dog pound and you want to be apologizing for something that you did wrong.
Yeah.
I want just because flowers on a Tuesday evening because you on the way home and you thought of me and you were like, oh, I think she would like these. And you just, brought those home.
It's the thought that counts. Like it's not about how much you spend. So, do we have a definition?
We do. So one of the first definitions that's on here is a historical definition that talks about knights, noblemen, and horsemen collectively. That's what it says on here. And honestly, I don't mind me a knight in shining armor.
Okay. Listen.
So yes, that resonates a little bit. But the next definition on here says the combination of qualities expected of an ideal knight, especially courage, honor, courtesy, justice, and a readiness to help the weak. Now, I ain't weak. Okay. But
the rest of that, I could see that.
And then the last definition, courteous behavior, especially that of a man toward women.
Courteous.
And I was going to say, let me look at the definition of courteous.
Okay.
Polite, respectful, or considerate in manner.
Those things almost sound like non-negotiables, like courteous, respectful. Oh, you're going to respect me. Okay. But it's like, why is the word chivalry so, I don't know, almost like, I wouldn't say that it's unattainable, but it's like put on this pedestal, as it should be, I feel like. But when you read that definition and then you think about what courteous means, why is there such a, I don't know, it's like it's on another level, when to me that should be like the baseline.
Yeah, bare minimum.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I wonder that too. I think when people just think of like a man that does chivalry, it just, or is chivalrous. Y'all know what I'm trying to say.
It's a hard word.
It is. That's a big word for Mo. But I think that when people hear that word, they automatically start to think like, that's a lot of work. Like I got to put in a lot of work for that.
So I wonder, like, from a male perspective, what do they think about being a chivalrous man? Do they feel like they have to go above and beyond what they would typically do? Is that what makes them chivalrous? Or is it like an innate ability, or just naturally within who they are as a person? So I would be curious if there are any guys out there watching. Drop down in the comments and let us know. Like, I'm curious what y'all think about this word, and just from our perspective, how we've kind of identified, what we see as, a chivalrous man. What do y'all think about that? Like, I'm very curious to know from the male perspective.
Yeah. What does chivalry mean to y'all?
Yeah. Now, before we move on, there was one other thing I wanted to just kind of talk about, and it's story time.
Yes.
So in talking about, like, so we both mentioned like men opening doors for us, whether it's a car door, the door to a store, or we're entering a restaurant.
My doors. Yeah. All on.
So story time. I have dated both types of men who, on one hand, if you touch that door, it's going to be a problem.
I like that. That's my kind of man.
Yes. And on the other hand, I've dated the man who doesn't even really think twice about it. And I've been in a couple of situations where, like, if we're coming to the car and I stand at the car door, I'm expecting you to open the door for me, right? So in this one instance, I stood there and the guy went around to his side and I just stood there like, he was like, oh, like it was like it just was not on his mind. But that was just my way of saying there's an expectation here, you know, and I'm not gonna like dog you about it, but you know, just in a cute, funny type of way, just, you know, like remind you, I expect you to open the door for me. And it was cool. I've also had the situation where I've had a very spirited conversation with a couple of guys that I've dated where they're like, well, you know, if that's just not naturally in my, you know, my DNA, if you will. But it doesn't mean that I respect you less or anything like that. And I'm just like, if you truly value me as a person and I'm important to you,
right,
you will make it a point to make it within your DNA.
Right.
That's how I feel about that. Like, I can understand if you didn't grow up doing that. Maybe you didn't see your father or a male figure in your life opening doors for women, but that doesn't make it okay. You know, that doesn't make it so that that you don't, you know, participate in those activities. Like, I just feel like pretty much anyone can learn any behavior that they want to.
Yeah. And I was going to say that too, that if, like you said, if you know this is something that's important to me and something that I really appreciate and value, and it makes me feel safe and all these things, it's like, you should want to do it anyway.
Why wouldn't you want to put forth the extra effort to make me feel good? Because guess what? When I feel good, okay.
This is a mother-daughter conversation, by the way.
Listen.
But no, I agree with you. Like, I know people say happy spouse, happy house, all that jazz, but I'm a big fan of happy wife, happy life. And I just, I agree with you. Like, when I'm being taken care of and I feel supported, safe, special, and all this other stuff, I amplify that energy times 10.
I'm going to go out of my way to make sure the things that you like, you know, and we can have a conversation about it. If it's something that I'm just 10 toes down or you're 10 toes down about, we can have a conversation about it at
compromise,
least.
At some point.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I feel like when it comes to compromising, though, for things that really matter to me, I'm not compromising on those kinds of things.
Some things you're not going to, or are not meant to be like your values, your core values, and like your beliefs and your morals. Those are not things to be compromised on. And if that's a core belief for you, then so be it. It just means that there's an incompatibility there between you and that person, and that's okay.
How do you feel about, for example, what we just talked about with opening doors and stuff like that? How do you feel about consistency when it is in relation to that? Because I've been in a few situations where guys will sometimes do it or sometimes not do it. And I actually did have a conversation with somebody, and he might be watching this, so no tea, no shade.
Listen.
No tea, no shade, but do listen. But we did have a conversation about how, you know, sometimes maybe he doesn't feel like, you know, coming and opening the door. He might be tired, or it might be inconvenient because it's a tight parking space and all this other stuff. And, you know, I remember coming to you and saying that, you know, how do you feel about it? And your initial response was, well, a gentleman is a gentleman all the time.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I do feel like that. I would say, I'm not even going to say the 80-20 rule here. Probably more like 90-10. Like, I can't say that I expect you to open my door all the time? Yes. If you don't open my door 100% of the time, am I going to be up in arms about it? Probably not. But if it's becoming more consistent that you're not doing it, I'm going to bring it up. But I try to do it like in a playful way, or, you know,
not me.
To not make it so heavy. But it's also generally, if we haven't already had the conversation, we will have a conversation about it, because like you said, it's something for me personally. Like I said, it makes me feel special. It makes me feel cared for. And when you don't do those things, and we can take opening the door out of the conversation, and just from generally speaking, what are the things that I value that makes me feel cared for, special, safe, whatever those things are, and whatever falls under that umbrella, you should be willing to do whatever those things are.
Right.
So if opening the car door is, one of those things, then let's at least have a conversation about it. And if you you might have a valid point one day that I haven't considered. I'm open to a conversation all the time. But I do think, like I said, a gentleman is a gentleman is a gentleman. And I get it sometimes. Okay, the space is tight, or maybe it's raining. We both need to like dash out to the car or something. Like, there are instances where I think, it's okay, you didn't open my door today. But if it's becoming more consistent, we gonna have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I think for me, it's more about consistency. And the moment that I start to see that you're not being consistent in those instances of like you said, it's raining or it's a tight parking space and things like that, those aren't present. I'm gonna have a conversation. And that's the thing. I'll talk to you about it. I'll give you a couple chances if we're being realistic.
Yeah.
You might not like my way of bringing it up. And, I've come to learn that I can be better about how I address things, but at least I'm, being conversational about it. I'll bring it to you. I'm always open to having a conversation when it comes to stuff like that. And, understanding you as an individual and how you show up in your relationships and things like that. But like I said, I think it's a consistency thing for me. I don't like inconsistency in any aspect of my relationships.
I think that makes sense. So I don't think that's unrealistic.
Yeah. And just a small note before we move on about inconsistency. I understand that life happens. People are going through things. People have their own, things with life, period. Sure.
Absolutely.
So it's just, I don't know. There's no rule book or handbook when it comes to dating and like how somebody shows up for you 100% of the time. And, I learned that as I grow. So.
We're all continuously learning. So that's important.
Okay, so pivoting a little bit in our conversation, let's talk a bit about love languages and how you, I guess, want your partner to show up and how you show up in your relationships. What's your love language?
My love language, I should have had my quiz here because I've taken it several times.
You don't know them off the top of your head?
I know my top one, and the reason why I say that is because I've taken it several times and they've shifted. My top one has always been my top one, but the other 4 have shifted.
Okay. So since you just said the other 4, so for the people that don't know, there are 5 love languages: physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, gift giving, and
acts of service.
And it's funny because acts of service is my number 1, but go ahead.
Mine too. Okay. Yeah. So, interestingly enough, like I said, I've taken the quiz multiple times. And acts of service has always been like number 1 for me. And I think the first time I took it, which was several years ago, I think that was more like in the 50% range. The last time I took it, which was maybe a year or 2 ago, it was 40%. So some of the other love languages have they've become a little more important to me. Although they're still not number 1, they have, like I said, just become more important to me. But acts of service for sure has always been my number 1 love language, because for me, anytime that you can make my life easier,
yes,
hands down, you get like a gold star, a brownie point, whatever you want to call it. Like forever, that will be my top 1.
Yeah. And it just, for me, just goes back to consideration. Like the things, your actions, how they make me feel.
Yeah.
That's like one of my top, non-negotiables when it comes to dating.
Yeah.
What does acts of service look like for you?
For me, like I said, anything that you can do to make my life easier. So the first few things that come to mind, I'm a homeowner. So if you can cut my grass, if you can do things around the house, things with my car, I ride motorcycles. So if you can work on my bike, anything to make my life easier where I don't have to pay somebody to do it. Or I don't have to do it myself, or I don't even mind helping, but not having to do it solely by myself. So things like that. I have yet to become a passenger princess. I so want to be a passenger princess. So that for me is an act of service. Like, you just drive and we taking a road trip and it's, 5, 6, 7, however many hours, and you do the bulk of that. That for me would just touch my heart. Like, seriously, I've always been the one to not necessarily like in the relationship be the one to drive all the time, but it makes me feel, again, special and feel cared for that you take the time to do that and that you just let me just sit over there and look cute.
Yeah. When you say that, I'm starting to think like, I think when we were originally having this conversation, we were looking to see if there were any major differences between our generations and what that looks like for, you know, love languages and things like that. But I 100% agree with you. And maybe it's just because you my mama and you the one that raised me. But like you said, acts of service, I've been, you know, on dates and things like that, or have gotten ready for dates, and like the guy will be, you know, he'll come and pick me up and things like that, and then they'll come up, check in on me and stuff like that, and I still have to put my heels on, and they start strapping up my heels for me and stuff like that. That's an act of service. It is. It's a little thing that makes a big difference for me. Like tying my shoes for me, like you said, doing stuff around the house, cooking for me. And y'all know me, I love food so bad. Okay, cooking food.
See episode 1. Season 1.
Yes, because the one thing about me, I love me some food. So a man that can cook is the man for me. Okay, but like you said, passenger princess all day, because I hate driving.
She hates it worse than I do.
I do.
I actually don't mind driving, but I'm getting to the point in my older age that I don't want to do it as much.
Yeah. So I agree with you in acts of service being number 1. What do you think are the ones that kind of fall a bit?
If I had to rank them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the other 4 rankings are off the top of my head, but I would probably say at this point, probably quality time would probably be 4, or 2 maybe. I'm going up or down. So second would be quality time. What is it? Gift giving, personal touch, and
physical touch, and words of affirmation.
Okay. Probably words of affirmation would be third. Cause tell me I'm pretty. Like, you know, you don't have to tell me every day, but you know, just little things like that. And then I would say probably gift giving. I think gift giving used to be number 5 for me, because I'm like, you don't have to buy me nothing. I praise the Lord, I do well for myself. And I've never chased a man for money.
Right.
Ever. And I never will. But I like little gifts here and there, you know, that kind of moved up. And yeah, physical touch. And it's so funny because that's always like men's number 1 is physical touch. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but that would probably be 5th for me.
I'm pretty much on the same boat as you, except I think words of affirmation is number 2 for me.
I can see that.
Because I have...
with your personality, I totally see that.
I have an anxious attachment style, and I need reassurance. So any chance you can get where you're telling me that I'm doing a good job, or you're proud of me, or I look beautiful, and I don't care how many times you see me in a certain dress with my makeup done, whatever, you better tell me I look good every single time. Like, so yeah, I would say, like you said, acts of service is number 1. Words of affirmation is number 2 for me. Quality time is 3. Gift giving 4. And then physical touch is 5. Okay. But I've come to realize that a physical touch has always been 5 for me. But I used to think it was because it was just like, oh, I don't really like to be touched and stuff like that. When I'm in love, girl.
Yeah, you can't touch me enough.
Yeah. Yeah. When I'm in love, you better touch me. And I'm going to be touching it. I'm like, when I'm in love, I'm like, I'm rubbing on your ears. I'm rubbing the back of your neck. I'm rubbing your hair. Like, okay, my bad. I forgot this is a mother-daughter conversation. Sorry. But I have to be in love. Like, I practice all of the love languages, even though physical touch is at the bottom. But I have to be in love for me to really display the physical touch aspect. Yeah,
I agree. And I think that sometimes men can think I'm a little standoffish because like when I first meet you, and actually I have another story time. So this was actually during COVID. I had met this guy, and we had gone out a few times, like to dinner. This was like not at the very beginning, but kind of toward the middle of COVID, where things, you know, were opening back up and whatnot. So we had gone out to dinner a few times, and then he invited me over to his place. He was going to cook dinner for me. So first of all, acts of service. And we actually talked about our love languages. Like, he was very into like the just the concept and wanting to talk about it, have a conversation about it. So we had talked about it. So he told me that, of course, his was physical touch.
All men, not all men, but a lot.
Most.
Yeah,
Okay.
a lot of men.
So I go to his place. He cooked dinner. You know, we have dinner and we watch a movie, and it's like real casual, laid back and whatnot. But that was actually one of the reasons why we did not continue, was because he felt like I wasn't giving him enough attention in his love language. Now, mind you, this had been maybe we were about 2 months into dating, and I'm like, maybe if I was like overly like attracted to him, I probably would have been a little more hands-on or whatever, but I'm trying to get to know you personally from, you know, just a conversational standpoint. Because sometimes when people aren't necessarily like your physical, you know, what you would like physically, and not to say that he was handsome, but there was just some things that I wasn't necessarily attracted to. But sometimes you can grow an attraction once you get to know someone's personality. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to give that a chance to develop. But he was just like, you know, you just, you know, don't really touch me. You don't really, you know, grab my hand to hold my hand when we're out. And I'm just like, I'm not there yet. Mm-hmm. And he just was not feeling that. So I was just like, okay, like, I'm not going to fight you over, you know, trying to get to know you. But I just felt like it was interesting that he made it such a point so early on that physical touch is my love language. And like, it was almost like he expected me to be all over him up front. And I'm like, I'm just not like that as a person anyway. But especially not if like you ain't like drop dead gorgeous and I'm just like enamored with how you look. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's important, one, to find somebody who's compatible with you in that way. Because something that I've come to learn is that while we have our love languages, a lot of the times when we say what our love language is, it's how we want to be loved. Yeah. So, but we also display our love in different ways. For sure. So the way that I like to receive love is acts of service, but the way that I like to give love is typically words of affirmation, because I'm going to tell you all the time, you're doing great. I'm proud of you, and this and that and the third. Yeah, sometimes I will, you know, do the acts of service and things like that. But a lot of the time, you know, the way that people show and display their love is typically a bit different than how they like to receive love.
I would say almost all the time. And I think it's important to keep that in mind, because when you think about like, someone can love you as hard as they know how. Right. But if that's not how you receive love, you're not going to feel loved. Right. Or maybe not loved as much as they actually love you. Right. So I think it's interesting, kind of how that plays out. And I think it's important that we have to keep that in mind, and that you have these conversations so that, you know, your person can tell you, this is how I like to be loved, or this is my love language, and you cater to those things. If you truly love that person and you truly, you know, want to see a future with that person, you might have to change some things within yourself to cater to their needs. Right. So,
yeah. But like you said, I mean, only dating somebody for 2 months and stuff like that. It's like,
okay, moving on. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect for you to, you know, do all that. And as women, unless your love language and how you show love is physical touch, please don't expect me to be all over you on the first date. Please.
Men are a different species.
Yeah.
Clearly,
okay. So with all of this, a chivalrous man, a man that knows your love language and loves you in that way, at what point do you bring him home?
For me, it's all about how I feel about you, more so than a period of time. So if we have been dating for 30 days and I can't get enough of you, I might bring you home. We could be dating for a year and I'm unsure about certain things, or I'm just not quite there yet. You may never have gotten that call or that opportunity to meet my family. So it's more about how I feel about the person versus how much time has passed. So I don't know. I think it's timetables are less important in my mind anyway, because I feel like, sometimes you can meet somebody and you feel like you've known them forever after a week or a month or however long. And then some people you talk to for months on end and it's like, I don't even know you. And more importantly, you don't know me, so I think it just depends. So I don't know. What do you think?
I agree with you to say that, it kind of just depends on how the relationship is looking on both sides. But I think a baseline for me would probably be 3 months into dating.
I think that's fair.
I think the 90-day rule or the 3-month rule is a good, baseline to start at, to kind of give it time to really start to see how people are in relationships and how they show up before, I bring somebody to my family, because I overthink when it comes to stuff like that. And one thing about me, I'm not going to bring you around my people and then we break up a week later and then my people be like, girl, where he at?
What happened?
What happened? Literally,
What
my family.
happened?
What happened? My family be like, what happened?
And we gonna ask questions.
Yeah. So I don't know. I be feeling embarrassed almost in those kind of instances.
I don't think you should feel that way. I get it, but I don't think, because we've all been there.
Yeah, and I think that's what I need to know and understand, because even with like my last, what you want to call it? Not
situation.
A situationship. Last person I was talking to, I was so gung-ho, like, girl, this my husband. I'm telling, literally, y'all, I'm telling everybody, this is my husband, y'all. Like, this is the one. We ain't even make it to 60 days.
But that's okay. Y'all had an initial immediate connection. And that feels good.
It does feel good.
And I think that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I do also agree. And I'm glad that you mentioned this 90-day kind of 3-month thing. Like, I don't have a hard and fast number, like I said, like number of days or months or whatever. But I do think it is probably important to see that person and the relationship through multiple things, if you will, not just the highs. Like, oh, we've had an amazing 2 weeks. I'm gonna introduce him to my family. Like, I would never do that. Like, that's just, but you might not even make it in 6 months, and things could be going really, really well. And that's because I'm just more, I think at my age, I've been through multiple relationships, many where I have brought them home, some I have not. And well, clearly none of them worked out because I'm still single. However, I will say I've been doing this for a long time. I was bringing guys home in college.
Can't relate. Can't relate.
I did. I only had 2 boyfriends in college. I brought both of them home.
But you dated both of them for a fair amount of time, though. Yeah,
the first one was about a year.
Okay.
The second one was about 2 years. So yes, that is true. But I brought both of them home. Like, and that, I mean, I was 19 and 20, 21, so I was young, and, and at that time for me, it was more. And I think even still now that I think about it, when I bring guys home, it's not just to introduce them to the family. It's so that the family can chime in. Yeah. Like, after you meet them and you've had a conversation, I'm interested to know what y'all think. So sometimes it's almost a vetting process, if you will. So sometimes I feel like if you kind of see a future with that person, or you're trying to figure out what that future looks like, maybe you will bring them home a little bit earlier just so you can get opinions and things like that. But if if like that's your person, or you think that's your person, maybe you want to bring them home because, hey, this is my person. I don't care what y'all think. This is this is my person. So I think you can kind of have both avenues, if you will, in terms of just trying to get feedback from your family. For me, it's more about that, because I value like what y'all think, and like what y'all think about the person, how you see us interacting, all types of stuff. So
yeah, I agree with you. Have you had any past experiences where you brought someone around the family and it was like an awkward experience or anything like that? Or has everybody kind of just been accepting?
My family is very accepting, period. So it hasn't.
Just your family? That ain't my family too?
Well, yes.
Our family.
Our family is very accepting. Or at least we're not going to make you feel some type of way in the moment. Now, we might have some conversation. We might talk about you behind your back.
As soon as you walk out that door, but hey.
But yeah, no, our family is very accepting regardless. Like, you're going to feel welcomed. You're going to feel like a part of the family. You're going to want to be a part of this family, right? Because that's just how close we are. That's how we interact. We have fun together. So I can't say for sure that I can't think of a situation where I brought somebody around and it was just weird.
Okay. And have you ever brought someone around and either regretted bringing them around too soon or just regretted bringing them around, period?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, not necessarily regretted bringing them around, period, but I think a recent situation, I regretted bringing them back. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. Cool. So I guess wrapping this topic up, do you feel like there's any difference, I guess, from back in the day versus now when it comes to bringing someone around? And maybe because I feel like I really haven't brought...
You haven't.
I've only brought one guy home.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was my boyfriend, my first and only boyfriend. So, I mean, do you feel like things have changed?
I'll say yes, somewhat, because I feel like dating today is just different, period.
Yeah.
So, like, how we date today versus 10, 15, 20 years ago, or I'll even say 30 years ago. I'm 49. I can't believe 30 years ago I was in college. Okay. Yes, it is different today than it was back then. So, back then dating was just easier and, it was easier to connect with people. So, when you did connect with someone, it felt more genuine up front versus dating today. You gotta weed through all the BS to get to the real nitty gritty of stuff. So it was easier to bring people home back then, I feel like, than it is like today. I would be very hard pressed to bring someone home. Like, at this point in life today, on whatever day this is in April 2025, we probably need to be talking marriage before I consider bringing somebody home, quite honestly, because I'm not playing. I'm not out here. I'm not dating just to date. I'm dating with intention. So if I'm bringing somebody home, I'm very serious about them.
Yeah.
Not to say that I wasn't serious back then, but we connected easier back then. So it was, I don't know, just the times are different.
Yeah, I was going to say the stakes are different. Yeah. Like you said, you're at a point where you're ready to lock it on down. So I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts as we wrap up today's episode?
This was a fun one. It reminded me of a couple of story times that I hadn't thought of recently. So that was kind of fun to rehash those. If those people ever see this. I'm sorry.
It ain't nothing personal.
But no, I thought this was a good one. And like I said, I was interested to see how you felt about some of these things because, like I said, we hadn't talked about it before. So it was good to get your perspective.
Yeah, I agree. Same. I want to echo the same sentiment as well. Just understanding how you think when it comes to the chivalry and stuff like that, but we're so alike that it's just like
mother, like daughter.
Yeah.
Do we need to change the name of our podcast?
No. I like the Mother-Daughter Mixtape. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if anybody out there is watching and y'all want to leave us some comments about what chivalry means to you guys, what your love languages are, and when you think it is the right time to bring someone home, let us know in the comments. Please. Because we would love to see y'all's opinions, see what y'all got to say, and maybe we'll come back and talk about some of the things that y'all talked about.
Yeah, I would love to do a part 2 to this.
I would too.
With some feedback from our community. So please, just drop down in the comments and let us know what you think about the episode and kind of how some of these things play out for you in your own personal and daily lives. I would love to know.
Yes. All right. Be sure to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at the MD, M as in mother, D as in daughter, mixtape. You can also find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify at the Mother-Daughter Mixtape. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will catch you guys in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye, guys.